They're all saving one, or most of the Hampshire fielders are saving one. Somerset need one run. It's Edwards to Hildreth. He's there and bowls Hildreth, and he gets the run away through the onside, and Somerset have won. They've won the Royal London One Day Cup.
Hello, you're listening to Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. This is the Somerset Cricket Podcast. My name's Ian Shepherd, and joining me this evening I've got Steve Tancock, Somerset CCC digital guru Ben Warren, and the voice of cricket on BBC Radio Somerset, Anthony Gibson. And it gives me great pleasure to announce, well, not announce, you obviously know this already, that Somerset's losing streak has come to an end with a bang, beating the county champions Warwickshire at Taunton by the small matter of an innings and 82 runs. Anthony saved me the embarrassment of not remembering what the final score was and having to look it up on my phone. That's the Somerset, we 8th now in the table, gone up 2 places. I think every other game in Division 1 was a draw, including what looked like an absolute road up at Gloucester where they hosted Surrey. But it all came together, and wasn't it glorious? Ben, we'll start with you, guesting today, a reciprocal arrangement after you very kindly allowed me to... well, it was a good start when I called Harry Errett, Sam Dalling my first stint in the commentary box. But I guess, along with Anthony, you would have seen all of those firsthand, and, well, it was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, pleasure to be back, Shep, and pleasure also to have you on comms for
you're too
a couple
kind.
of those
you're too kind.
On Saturday. Yeah, no, fantastic win, wasn't it? You know, everyone contributed. It was just great to see the boys bounce back. Thought it was a great pitch. I thought we should give credit to Scott Hawkins at the pitch. I was pretty convinced after Somerset had racked up 450 that we were going to see. We probably were still going to be here on Sunday evening, but credit to the Somerset attack. I thought they just found enough out of the surface, and I think what was really encouraging was that traditionally the pitches do get better at Taunton, but they're still, even on that third evening, was just about enough in it for Jack Brooks and the seamers, and we saw Jack Leach just turn a couple out of some footholds, which is really nice to see. You know, traditionally the spin has been early if it has been present at Taunton. So a really great 3 days, and special mention to Scott and his team for what I thought was a much. It was a really good pitch for 4-day cricket.
It was. One thing that I thought is quite a few of the Warwickshire batters gave their wickets away, particularly second innings. There was a few loose shots there, in particularly the coup de grace, if you like, of Lamb trying to launch one over the retirement flats when they had about, was it 45? A bit longer than that, but it wasn't inconceivable. Okay, they only had 1 wicket left, but you know they could potentially have still batted out for a draw. But if you're trying to smash Jack Leach, a length ball from Jack Leach into the retirement flats, it looked very, very ugly. But my point was going to be, before I started going down that little cul-de-sac, they played some bad shots, but that was in the face of some relentlessly tight bowling from the Somerset bowlers, Anthony.
It was, and backed up with some superb catching as well. I mean, that was the other thing. We didn't drop anything. And some of the catches were absolutely spectacular, and it does make such a difference. You know, lifts the bowlers, and my favourite moment in the Warwickshire second innings was when they put Craig Overton at leg gully. You know, the most obvious,
but it wasn't leg gully, was it? It was weird. It was kind of like a.
Well, it was
a bit short. It was almost like a deep
backward square.
A deep short deep square leg, or a very short in square leg that wasn't. It was an odd position. I mean, if you have a look at the live stream, you'll see what we mean. But it was, and it worked, didn't it? I'm not sure whose idea was that. Tom Mabel said.
Tom Mabel gave it to Matt Renshaw, didn't he?
Renshaw, yeah, he said, yeah, definitely it was Matt Renshaw. And you know, Sam Hain fell for it hook, line and sinker. which was extraordinary because he's quite an intelligent cricketer and a formidable obstacle. And there he was gone. But no, I thought it was a great all-round performance. I mean, that was the important thing. Mm. The batsman got some runs, some serious runs, despite that, typical mid-innings collapse. You can't have a Somerset first innings
4
with the
for 7,
having a collapse of some sort. But they were bailed out by 85 for the last 2 wickets. 450 was a more than useful total. And I just thought it was a really good all-round performance. It's the first match we've won for exactly 51 weeks. It was May the 9th. It was a Saturday. May the 9th was my birthday. I remember it. The Aegeus Bowl when we beat Hampshire, and that was the last match we won. So
was that the Somerset have won? No, they haven't. Anthony game. It was.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah, because we kind of front loaded our group stage in the championship last year, didn't we? We sort of won the games and then then
settled for it.
Yeah, Hampshire at home was kind of it was that. Do we want Hampshire to draw and possibly go through, or do we want to beat them? So that one kind of.
We would have beaten the Gloucesters if it hadn't been for the weather. I think
we would have done
up at Bristol.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a really good game then. But after that, we sort of settled for a draw. We settled for a draw against Hampshire. We settled for a draw against Leicestershire. And we settled for a draw just against Surrey, despite collapsing in the second innings for 69. So yeah, it was great to see Tom Abel with a smile on his face at the end of the 4-day championship match. I was just so pleased for him, and he batted so well, and he captained them well, and it was It was just great to see.
He looked about 3 foot taller in that interview I saw on the socials on the website. He just looked like he had the weight of the world lifted off his shoulders, which is great to see for Tom. And Steve, after 7 matches of blog posts, really kind of regurgitating the same stuff. So fair play to you for keeping those interesting. But we've got our Somerset back.
Do you know the thing that struck me? It was Steve Kirby's comment, and it's something I'd never thought of in all my years before. When he said to Anthony on Friday evening, "You have to allow the opposition partnerships, or accept the opposition are going to have partnerships." And that time on Saturday afternoon, when Will Rhodes and Sam Hain were batting, I kept thinking that and thinking that's a really good mentality, and I think it proved, that they didn't give up. They kept. If you looked at the run rate in that spell, it was barely 2 and over for an hour and a half. And as we all know, a bit of scoreboard pressure, even though that time horizon was probably shifting because of the weather forecast. And I thought that was really interesting that they didn't panic. They just kept rotating the bowlers. And then, a batsman made a mistake, and do unto others as is done unto ourselves then, because we took 4 wickets in the blink of an eye. I think it was about 15 or 20 minutes and there was 4 wickets gone. And that was pretty much it done. And I thought that was a really mature bowling display as well as an incredibly skillful bowling display. And who can't, after all he's been through, who can't love Jack Brooks and those celebrations and that was such a... it would have been lovely if it had been Craig or Lewis or Josh doing it, but for him to do it and perhaps get a little bit of a psychological monkey off his back, I think was really important going forward. And now, of course, if Peter Siddle's back in the side, we've got potentially a really delicious selection problem at Bristol next Thursday.
Well, yeah, Brooks spoke very candidly in the interview we did post-match, saying that he knows he's not a shoo-in in this side, but still believes he's got a role to play. And you obviously not being there, Steve, Anthony, it was incredible, that little period of play. Because what kicked it off was Craig Overton and Matt Renshaw were just mucking about in the slips, basically, and they started clapping their hands, as in to say, the slow hand claps that gradually get quicker as the bowler runs in. So, of course, all the crowd kind of joined in, and then first ball of that, Brooks pulled out of his run-up. I don't know whether that was a genuine kind of niggle, he lost his run-up, or he was just playing to the crowd or whatever. But then, bang, Burgess plays a really loose shot outside off stump, nicks off to Steve Davis. The crowd goes wild. 2 balls later, he's got Danny Briggs out. He gets another one. It was just surreal. I've never experienced anything like it in Championship cricket. Just that buzz and that atmosphere. And then what flipped it round is, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Auntie. I don't know if you kind of got this, Ben, from being up in the box, but after tea, it was a really eerie atmosphere there. The ground was virtually hushed. It was, in anticipation of this win. But boy, what a job the Somerset faithful did as 12th man, making some noise in the crowd. I'm not sure whether the Warwickshire batsmen will admit or not whether it put them off or not, but it must have contributed.
I think it just goes to show, doesn't it, that can play a part in Championship cricket. I think, Anthony, you would have noticed it at the Oval last week when on that Saturday evening again that the Surrey crowd were getting really on the involved in the game, and I'm sure that contributed to that last ball wicket of Peter Siddle on the penultimate evening, because the atmosphere there was really one of the best I've seen in a Championship game, and I think it was almost a replication of that down here at Taunton this week. But yeah, it was fantastic to see. I think with that coinciding with the NHS day that we saw a lot of new people at the ground, so that a lot of that was there. A lot of people saw their first experience of Championship cricket that day, and based on the comments I've seen, a lot of people went home thinking they're going to come back, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's not always like that.
They chose their day well.
Yeah, that was a really good day to have it. Yeah, we wouldn't have. It would have been nice
I
if it was one of the other seven.
Somebody told me on Twitter, Mark Long on Twitter, said it was Tom Banton who started.
I think he relayed it, Anthony, from what I saw. I think he was fielding nearer that crowd and picked it up from the slips, and sort of that's what conveyed it to the crowd from what I saw.
It seems a very Matt Renshaw thing to do. Start doing something like that, thinking outside the box.
I'm really glad, Ian, that he has still got the man-child in him that we saw 4 years ago. And that although he's grown up and he's now a really top serious player who must be on the verge of the Aussie Test side, because that was a magnificent, mature innings. Not only did he score big, but he took the game away from the county champions in that first session and a half. But I'm glad to see that he's still got that bit that drove people a bit bonkers 4 years ago. It's lovely. It's really nice to see, and long may it continue.
Yeah, if he can just channel that and not use it for a positive and not get himself into too much trouble with it, I think it's an absolutely brilliant thing. Should we talk about Renners then? So him and Tom Lumby opened the batting after being stuck in by Will Rhodes on that first morning. And that did not turn out to be a very, very good decision in the end. But, I mentioned this to you and I bumped into you on Thursday, Anthony. We probably both would have bowled first as well. It felt like that kind of day.
Well, that's what Matt Renshaw said. That he didn't actually say for definite that Somerset would have bowled first. What he said was, if I'd been captain, I would have bowled first. And it was a perfectly understandable decision by Will Rhodes. There was a hint of green about the pitch. Somerset's batting is lacking in confidence, and under cloudy skies, you'd expect the ball to swing. But it was one of those. The ironic thing is that of the 7 games that we lost in succession, in 6 of them we won the toss. Yeah, and this one against Warwickshire was a very, very good toss
to lose. Anthony's
thanks
just frozen.
No, I'm sorry.
I think the pitches are the pitch that's got produced. I think it's a really interesting point, because we just spoke about that delivery that Jack Leach bowled to Will Rhodes in the second innings is almost like that started the slide, and it's certainly shown the value of Jack in the second innings. But I don't recall that definitely turned out of the footholes, and I don't recall that happening too often in the last few years. The pitches have generally got better as the game's gone on, so you can understand why Will Rhodes did decide to bowl first, because the traditional sort of Taunton trajectory of the pitch would mean that it actually on the 4th day it would be at its best for batting. But I thought that was a really interesting development, that there was a bit of deterioration out of some footholes, which might be the way in which we can make the most out of Jack Leach moving forward into games, that we can allow the pitches to deteriorate and take spin in the 3rd and 4th days rather than off in day one, because we're clearly not going to be able to have too much leeway with starting the pitches as they were a few years back. But if we can keep developing pitches that deteriorate, I think that's a really good sign, and hats off to Scott and his team for making that happen, because I know it's not easy.
No, I mean, I know literally next to nothing about pitch preparation, but it must be more of an art than a science to try and get a pitch to behave in the way that suits your team. Exactly what you just said, Ben. Spin on days 3 and 4, and good for batting on days 2 and 1 and 2.
There's a very worrying trend, though, I think, not with us, but around the championship. I mean, Anthony picked up on this at the Rose Bowl and said that pitch was dying as the game went on. And, Neville Road was a road. Sorry, the Seat Unique Stadium was a road, clearly. And you look around the country, I mean, Durham's second innings, Lees and Dixon put on about 190 odd for the first wicket, and they were under pressure. And that pattern was repeated all around the place. And I do, it does really get my goat, as people who read the blog will know that, I've got people who will jump on as soon as we have a slightly unusual fall of wickets. Everyone's, Taunton's up to its old tricks again. But that was the perfect pitch for 4-day cricket. And there are an awful lot of very imperfect pitches. And I, for one, will be really interested to see what they produce in Bristol 10 days' time.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see how that pitch would have behaved on the 4th day.
Yeah.
And I think I think Somerset bowled really, really well. But I think for Warwickshire to be bowled out twice, as they were, and the fact that nobody really went on and got a big score, I think they'll be kicking themselves, particularly with the forecast. It was we probably might have got on it about sort of 3 o'clock yesterday had that game gone. But the fact that on a pitch that there were runs there, there were runs out there. There's no question. No matter how well Somerset were bowling, I think Warwickshire would be absolutely kicking themselves.
Yeah, they were about 84 for 3 with 50 overs to go, weren't they? And that's not a long way away in Championship cricket, is it? 50 overs can go like that if you bat properly and get the heads down. I mean, we were just on the verge of, shoulders were going down a bit, heads were going down, and then
it went quiet, didn't it?
Yeah, and you notice it when Somerset go quiet, because we are one of the most vocal teams
but Ian,
around the circuit.
We said last week and probably the week before and the week before that on here, we need to produce surfaces that back our bowlers to bowl other sides out, because we've got a superb bowling attack. And that, you could write that in letters 10 foot high across the internet this week, because that's been proven. And much as we admire Abbott and Abbas, or the people up at Yorkshire that are pretty impressive, Lancashire got a very good bowling attack, especially with Jimmy Anderson around, I will still give our Overton and co a run at being better on an equal footing than any of those, and that was proved its point. And if we can consistently put runs together, then we should be aspiring to be nearer the top end of the table than the bottom end of the table come the start of September.
Yeah, and that, like we said, that was a perfect cricket wicket, really. Jack Brooks, he was expensive, but I think if you're going to use him in that role of being a pitch-up swing bowler, looking to get the batsman driving, looking to find the edge, then I think he's fulfilled his role absolutely perfectly. Yeah.
I'd see both of them used to do that quite often, go at 3.5, 4 and over, and Joel Garner was going at 1.5, and they weren't too shabby as a combination,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is why the team that took the field down at the Aegeus Bowl was always going to struggle to win, because if you have Jack Brooks pitching it up, swinging it, trying to get wickets going at 4, 5 and over, you can have that in an attack where Josh Davies going for 1 and over, Craig Overton's going for 1.5 and over, and Lewis Gregory's going for 2 and over. When you've got two rookies like old Ned Leonard and Casey Aldridge coming in who aren't able to bowl dry, then Jack Brooks doesn't quite fulfil that miserly role that the others can do. Speaking of roles, one thing I think has helped Tom Lammonby no end over the last couple of games is going back to being the junior, if that's the right word, the junior opener in the partnership. Because let's not forget, he is only sort of 20, what was he, 22, 21, 22 now, about that? And being out there, learning off Matt Renshaw and not feeling the pressure of being the senior opener at such a young age is helping him no end at all.
It's helping Matt Renshaw as well, because he said Matt Renshaw likes to take first ball. Tom Lammonby doesn't like to take first ball. So, it's a very good combination, and they batted really well. I mean, that partnership was really the foundation. That one was 137 and then 85 or some for the second wicket. Those two partnerships were the foundation of the win, because even though we had a mid-innings collapse as per usual, we had enough runs on the board to put real scoreboard pressure on Warwickshire and give our bowlers something to bowl at for a change. It was just such a huge difference from what we've been used to in most of the last 7 or 8 games. Great stuff.
Tom Banton,
and also fair credit to Tom Banton, because although he didn't make many on the Friday morning, that was a proper number 4's innings, getting us through that last phase of the first day. If he'd have gone, we could have been resuming on, I say only 300 for 7, but you know what I mean. In the context of where we got to, we could have been only 300 for 7. And I thought that was a proper first-class number 4's batting performance. He sensed the situation. He batted to the situation. He showed a lot of maturity and a lot of self-restraint. And I got a huge amount of admiration for that innings, although it won't hit the headlines.
Yeah, I thought the way he batted, he seems to have kicked the little T20 devil off his shoulder. He doesn't look like he's reeling himself back in and trying to stop himself playing big shots. He looks like he's out there and he knows his role. He's obviously worked a lot over the winter on his red ball batting, and he really does look a lot more calm and a lot more assured at the crease. But then that if the need comes, he can go out there and smash 50 off 25 balls if you need him to. So really happy with
that. I think that clarity of him batting in the top 4 or maybe even 5, but I think that clarity is really helped. And I think it's easily forgotten back in 2019 when a lot of it was made of his white ball form. Actually, his red ball form was very good. Actually, in that year, I remember up at Guildford, he came in really tough circumstances against Morkel and scored. I think it might have only been 60, but it's probably worth 160 in the context of the match. So I'm pretty sure we were 30 for 3 or something against a good bowling attack. So he definitely can bat in 4-day cricket, and I think him coming in at 4 gives him that clarity to say, you're going to bat properly. You're going to build in innings. This is very different to white ball cricket. Whereas I think when he was coming in at 6, it was almost kind of like halfway house. It's almost like
a little too frenetic.
And even when he was opening the batting, I felt that he didn't have that. Was he going to try out and play some shots opening the batting and trying to put the pressure back on the bowlers, or was he trying to just survive the new ball? But I think 4 is a really good position for him in that lineup if he's going to play in that manner.
He just needs to get the monkey of not having scored a century off his back. He needs to get 100. It's preying on his mind at the moment. But I do like the little shot he plays where to a ball, on or around off stump, where he angles the bat down and just lets it run off the face of the bat down through the slips to third man. That's a really good way of playing on a pitch like the one we had against Warwickshire, where it's doing a little bit. Because, you're taking advantage of a little bit of width without putting yourself really at risk, because the ball is going straight down. The way he angles it angles his bat. It's not pretty, but it's very, very effective. And I was very impressed. But I want to see him get 100. And I think once he's got 100, I think he'll be an even better middle order batsman. But I think he's nailed down that number 4 spot now in the Somerset middle order.
I couldn't agree more. Someone whose spot is in... We couldn't have an episode without highlighting a little bit of a negative is Steve Davis's current form with a bat, to me, is not symptomatic of somebody with an incredibly clear mind and in good form.
He batted really well. He was batting beautifully when he ran himself out.
There was the picture on social media of the scorecard. Steve Davis run out by miles, which was the obvious joke to make. But It was a bit of a silly single. I wasn't up there. I wasn't up there Friday. I didn't see it, but it did seem to be.
It was never a single.
Hit it
there.
straight to the fielder, and
it was just a bit of brain fade. You know, it happens to the best.
Like Anthony was saying, that period on the first evening when he did come in and it could have, quite. How many times have we seen? Like at the Oval on day one at the Oval, that kind of good start becoming sort of just get drained away into a 50-50 day. But he did play really well that evening to sort of maintain Somerset's stranglehold on the day. So I don't think we're in a territory yet where we're questioning whether Steve Davis should be giving up the gloves. So.
I'd go further, Ben. I'd actually say I don't want Tom Banton to keep wicket in 4-day cricket. I want him to have a season and a half where he just bats. And if he keeps wicket and carries on keeping wicket in the T20s, that he's used to that role. That's just, to me, why if it ain't broke, don't fix it in that regard. And, people also forget, England for years had a guy called Bob Taylor keeping wicket. Somerset for years had a guy called Derek Taylor keeping wicket, who until latterly got moved up the order and scored 170 on the first time he opened. He was a number 9 who probably averaged about a dozen or 15, but he was an automatic pick because he was just silk with the gloves. And all the time Steve Davis is contributing, man of that experience as well. We can't tell, even you can't tell, Ben or Anthony, being up close all the time. We can't tell what value he adds to talking to Craig in the slips between overs and little things he says, which, with all due respect to Tom Banton or James Rew when he comes back from exams, they can't provide that at the moment. They'll learn it in time. But, if we have turned a corner, and we've turned a corner, but we don't know if we're on a straight yet, do we? You've just got to, that experience is priceless. And, I always think if Steve Davis said, at the end of the season, I'm leaving Somerset, how many counties would go, we'll have him still? And I think that's what you've got to remember. So let's just remember that and give the guy some credit. And if his mind is a bit frazzled at the moment and he runs himself out or plays a silly shot, he'll be working as hard as anyone, I'm sure, to rectify that.
Yeah. And he's caught brilliantly and kept brilliantly all Somerset. I think it's actually, I know we touched on it earlier, but actually the whole cordon have been great all season so far. Matt Renshaw in particular, Craig Overton.
Some of the catches have just been out of this world. I mean, the one that Tom Abel took at third slip. I mean, the one that Renshaw took when he was diving down to his left. Craig Overton is he's prehensile in.
Anthony, what does prehensile mean?
It means that you can stretch out your arm or a limb to a greater extent than you would than would seem physically possible.
Oh, thank you. Stretchy. There we go.
No, it's a bit
Stretch Armstrong,
reach beyond expectation, probably, because it's used in the animal kingdom, isn't it?
Exactly.
Oh, there we go. See, you learn something new every day. Yeah, I mean,
education on a Monday evening.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So Renshaw, my 2 wickets in the commentary box in my little stint, it was Overton and Abel, both taking really good low catches. So we didn't put a chance down, did we? There was one really tough one that may have come off thigh pad, I think, that Steve Davis got one glove to, but I
don't think that was a chance.
No. So just being, I'm not got anything against Steve Davis from the last 10 minutes. It might sound like James Rew stuffed 50 quid in my pocket to try and talk him into the team, but that was an absolute the one that he didn't manage to grab was an absolute. It would have been an absolute worldie if he'd taken it over, but just looking through the bowling figures, really, I mean, for bowling out the county champions twice, it was a real team effort. Lewis Gregory, I thought, looked back to somewhere near his best. Certainly he didn't look like he was being restrained by any thoughts of a bad back or anything like that. He was steaming in and giving it some licks.
Yeah. And Josh Davey was doing Josh Davey things again, as Dan likes to say,
No, that's Josh Davey watches Dan's. Roloff van der Merwe doing Roloff van der Merwe things is mine. But Josh Davey
I'm mixing my metaphors.
Mixing your metaphors, but Josh Davey can do Josh Davey things if he likes.
But it could have gone much better, really, could it? In terms of their injury doubts. I remember Anthony when we walked away from the Oval after that.
We were worried.
We were worried about primarily Lewis Gregory, but also obviously Craig Overton's toe injury, and also Josh Davey appeared to tweak something. So to have all three of them recover in time and help Somerset take 20 wickets was a really good result, because it could have been a lot worse.
And we did it without Peter Siddle as well, which is the one we weren't talking about on last week's episode as being an injury doubt. The three that we thought would be dodgy played, and the one that was it in the warm up, he got a stomach strain or a side strain.
No, according to Steve Kirby, Steve Kirby was saying with Peter Siddle, if Peter Siddle says he's fit to play, he's fit to play, and if he does, he isn't. And he said he came to him on the Thursday morning and said, I'm touch and go. I don't think I should play. But, he's carried a lot of heavy work the first three games, so he's now had a 2-week break. And he came on as a sub and fielded as a sub for a while. So that, that's probably work, if you rest your overseas quick bowler and win by an innings and then give him a week off as well, happy day.
Yeah,
there's a long season.
You've got to feel sorry for Jack Brooks, though.
Oh, you have? But it's a long season.
It'll be Jack who makes way for Sids in at Bristol, won't it? Has to be.
Yes.
No other changes to the side.
Fingers crossed, injuries permitting, blah, blah, blah.
It's a good position to be in, isn't it? And when you look back at some of the teams that we had to select at the back end of last season, to have that depth of fast bowler and still maintain that quality of attack is a really good sign heading into another massive game up at Bristol.
Yeah, and with it being a very congested season, you can't reasonably expect all those four quick bowlers to play every single game, so that they won't, especially when two of them are Peter Siddle and Jack Brooks, who are not quite rapidly approaching 40, but certainly nearer 40 than 35. You're going to have to rest and rotate, and like we said, it's great.
And Marchant is taking wickets for fun in the seconds. I know it's the seconds, but he's bowled the seconds to a couple of good wins the last couple of weeks. Sonny Baker was bowling, I believe, on the outfield.
He was just running. He wasn't bowling. He was just.
I think he was just running.
Just doing some sprints.
Well, that's an improvement. So
It's a nice little segue into the seconds, who are playing against Gloucester today. They're away. They were about 220 for one. This is where I realise again.
226 for one, 68 overs early end of the day. Ben Green 131 not out. Lewis Goldsworthy 63 not out.
There we go. So both making a case for recollection. I don't think Ben Green will.
What sort of a team are the Gloucesters putting out? Is it good?
Yeah, good question. I will tell you in a second. I know we've got a very strong side out.
Yeah, strongish. Josh Shaw, Goodman, who played against Somerset last year in the first team. George Scott, Warner, I think he played against a couple of games in the first team this year.
Shaw, Scott, Taylor are the name, and Charlesworth are the names that you recognise. And Jamie Baird is back keeping wicket, so he's been away. Whether he's had exams as well, so and I'm interested to see that Casey Aldridge is slated to bat 6, so he's been working his way up the order because he's been scoring runs. So, and Ned Leonard, Marchant, Delango and Ollie Sale, which is a pretty formidable first three in your bowling attack in the second team. And Seconds Watch will be up sometime tomorrow morning, everyone. So that seems to be getting really well received.
Mike not sent his copy in yet.
He sends it in while we're recording, Ian. He'll probably WhatsApp me in a minute while we're recording.
Right,
to check
you need to set these deadlines, Steve. Come on, you've got to be an editor. You've got to be firm with these people, or they'll take you for a mug.
I do have a life. I do have a life as well, mate.
I'll tell you what, speaking of having a life, my mood as I left the county ground on Saturday night has made me realise how much that bloody cricket team affect my mood. Have affected my mood over the last 3 months. I was absolutely buzzing, and I thought, I haven't felt like this since probably the semi-final of the T20.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many of our listeners will be thinking the same. And speaking
Paul
of...
Edwards wrote, sorry, quickly, and Paul Edwards was down and he wrote, and I mean, Paul Edwards is just brilliant. He's a sort of level of cricket writing I think I'd just love to be even close to. But he says about how basically at no other ground and no other club in the country does he sense that. You know, and he's a proper man of Lancashire, and I think if you forced him to admit, he'd probably say Somerset are his second side, and he says that about, you know, it's we are as a club so interwoven into the community, not just of all the fabulous community stuff we do, but you know, I've seen it. We've been in town and walking down on a non-match day, and you see, I think the last time it was Jack Brooks, Lammers, and Ben Green just walking through the town, you know. And that's always as it has been since I was a child. And I think that it really does affect us all in a way. It certainly did my family when I was a kid growing up. You know, I had aunts and uncles who'd be miserable if Somerset hadn't won. And I think the flip is true. And you just sense it from the simple metric, how many people go onto the blog after a good day's play compared to a bad day's play. It's just stark. It really is. And,
yeah,
you know,
I read that piece from Paul Edwards. It was like a poem. It was just a really, really excellent piece. I think I retweeted it. I'll retweet it again, but it's definitely worth reading. The report, Paul's report on the match.
Yeah, I've retweeted them all, so people can jump on my Twitter and see it as well.
Right, so listeners have been firing in the questions this week. These aren't going to be, should we sack Jason Kerr? What are you going to do about the batting order for the next game? We've got some lovely positive points. And the first one is for you, Ben, which is, I think, a general inquiry about the live stream. There were some specific questions. As you can tell, I'm incredibly prepared. And it was Rob Reed who says, what plans does Ben have to develop the already excellent live streaming service? Additional cameras, ? Does this have a budget, ? Can it generate its own funding, ? And YouTube ads between overs, ? So, Ben, fire away and maybe give us some more general kind of a background of how the live stream has developed over the last couple of years.
Yeah, no worries. So thanks for the question, Rob. So, yeah, definitely on a good course of improvements with it. It's been a great journey so far. So the biggest source of revenue is through sponsorship. So if you watch the stream, you'll notice a few product placement ads around the joint and a few bits and pieces that we do. So that is currently how we have a budget attached to the stream. So it is a sort of almost a sub-section of the income stream to the club, and it's all sort of newly developed income, which is great. So yeah, that we truly believe that that keeping it free and keeping it accessible is the way to go. And in terms of advertising, yes, we do take advantage of the YouTube ads at the start, but still probably the biggest income generator is through our commercial sponsorships, giving them an asset such as the stream to make use of. Lots of plans to improve it. It's getting harder and harder to improve it without spending serious money. But we're trying to make lots of improvements as we go through. So yeah, happy to take suggestions. If any of the listeners got any ideas on how they want to see it improved, always happy to take suggestions. But yes, additional cameras. Lots of different pieces around data is something that we want to improve, and yeah, just kind of keeping it sort of a real sort of community project where people can feel really invested in it. We're not here just to film the cricket; we're there to kind of make it a bit of an entertainment product. So yeah, having people like Shep and Vic Marks and Peter Trigo involved was.
I'm glad I got top billing ahead of Vic and Triggs there.
No, he was building up. Ian. He wasn't going down. He was building up.
But yeah.
I mean, just going on to Rob's point about the YouTube ads between overs, you can't really do that, can you? You can't just click a button on YouTube to say show an ad, and if they show a 2.5 minute ad between overs or whatever, it's difficult that way, isn't it? You can't really do that.
It's possible, but probably it starts to border on the intrusive kind of. We don't want to overpower people with commercial elements to it. It's very much kind of, we want to keep it so that it's a pretty clean watch, but there is what we do commercially is sort of well received. Trade Nation, for example, WPA, there are two sort of premier sponsors that will do the sort of the game shows at halftime and all that sort of good stuff. So we could do more, but it's a balance between making a quick buck and keeping it a good experience for people.
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of speaking to you up there on Saturday, Ben, and a lot of it, the improvements you want to make is dependent on the software provider that you're using, isn't it? And I gather that they're more interested in working on trains than doing the live streaming side of things, which sounds weird, but Ben will kind of clarify what I mean.
Yeah, it's such a niche kind of thing to get involved with county cricket streaming. So a lot of the partners that we work with to make it happen is, it's a great journey, and I think it's really weird to remember. Even a couple of years ago, we were off 2 static cameras, one at either end. So it's pretty cool to think where we've got to in a couple of years, and where it might end up in the next couple of years would be cool to look forward.
So I suppose if you went to Gordon Hollands and said, "Gordon, can I have X amount of money? We'll have Hawkeye and that sort of thing." Do you think? I suppose you've got to put a business case for everything. But one thing that I am thinking about with the streams, which isn't beyond the realms of possibilities, the third umpire for line decisions came in about 92, 93, something like that. So do you think that will be in county cricket, given that we've got streaming and cameras going on? Do you think that will be a possibility? Do you think that we'll start to see the third umpire coming more into the domestic game on the back of live streaming, or do you think it will still be just on the broadcasters' technology that they're relying?
Yeah, it's a really good point. There's no reason why it couldn't happen. We could all provide line cameras for not much. I guess it just depends on the ECB and how they see that technology being rolled. I guess they'd have to employ a third umpire at all the grounds and that sort of thing. We could
do it between us. I'm sure we could manage.
So I don't know if there's a massive kind of demand for it, but certainly the technology is pretty available now, really, to have third umpires for run-out calls and stump-ins. Be pretty straightforward, I would have thought.
Yeah, but I think with the one thing that you can always guarantee about technology is it gets better and it gets cheaper. So I think it's going to be inevitable that we'll probably be having DRS in the county game maybe within the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think the point about the technology becoming cheaper is a really valid one, because what you're able to do now off a very simple setup is amazing compared to what you would immediately sort of assume back in even 4 or 5 years ago. So in 5 more years' time, you're not probably a lot of the stuff we think is completely beyond the realms of possibility won't become a much of a barrier. So it's just great, isn't it, that we can between everybody involved in county cricket and the fans play a huge role in this, is to try and get something that everyone can watch and listen to and however they want to consume their cricket, and it just gives people a greater insight into the county game.
And the best stream of the week was you trolling Warwickshire with the live stream of it, just pissing it down at the county ground yesterday.
Yeah, it's missed out on me day 4 so far. So
yeah, I just still can't get over how they batted after there were 80 over 350 overs to go.
Can I just say, well, we're talking commentaries, and I always listen to a fair part verbally as well as watch the stream, just A, because of when I'm working, but B, because it's how I was brought up consuming cricket, and C, because I love Anthony's commentary. But I did feel for him, and I know he's far too professional to say anything, but I just wanted Clive Eakin to actually show a little bit of enthusiasm for county cricket, because it was like, it would be like, and Hannon Dolby's picked up another wicket there. He's got 4 now. And, and Anthony's going, oh, what a catch by Matt Renshaw. That's amazing. The guy on Saturday was much better, I thought. And then I was on the point of, if I'd have been there, I'd have gone into the commentary cabin and said, I'll do the third voice for you, Anthony, for a while, or whatever you want me to, just to give Anthony a break, because he didn't have a third voice, and it was just wearing me down listening. So props to you, Anthony, for getting. And then on the Friday, he had to leave. Presumably it was Stourbridge against Bromsgrove or something. He had to go and report on.
Coventry City.
All right, sorry.
But he is
pretty much the same thing then.
Clive is very professional, but he's a bit deadpan. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he will admit himself to being a touch curmudgeonly in his approach to everything, but he knows the game inside out. But yeah,
I know. But you had Shepherd and Trigo and co getting really excited on live stream, and then Anthony trying to cajole a bit of atmosphere out of him. It was just there was quite a nice juxtaposition.
I did feel really guilty, Anthony, being up there in the gods with a perfect view of the ground and just sort of peeking over down to you.
We won't go there, Shep. We won't go there.
Could you not put the scorers down there, Ben, and give Anthony his commentary? Oh no, I'm not going to go. Not going to go there. Not going to go there.
You're asking the wrong.
Can I just say one thing?
I tell you what. I do need to know, because I've been meaning to ask this for ages. So Ian Botham stand, you've got 4 or 5 hospitality boxes, and then you've got that bit that kind of juts out where the old little scoreboard used to be. What is that? What's in there?
That is the control room. So that's where the operations and all the stewarding is sort of led from, so that they can see. It's got all the CCTV bits and pieces and like that. So they've got a pretty good view of manning if people need assistance.
Unlike some of the rest of us.
But don't go there. We won't
Don't go there. Don't go there. Now we know.
Ian, can I just say before you go back to questions, you and I have done really well, because we've gone 50 minutes and we've not mentioned Rob Bailey and Alex Wolff once. So well done, you and me.
Well, Alex Wolff is close to coming off the list, because there was probably a 50-50 LBW for Josh Davey that he gave.
Well, it was a bit more dodgy than that, I would think.
Well, I mean, I have got the list here somewhere.
64,
Where is it?
40-60.
No, Ian, that is a resignation match if you ever take him off the list. I'm afraid. I'm sorry, that's a red line.
Well, I've had a very busy day, and I've had a bottle of Thatcher's Vintage, which is 7.4%. So I probably shouldn't have any more if I want to be fit for work in the morning. But yeah, he's enhanced his reputation. He is more welcome at Somerset than he was a few weeks ago.
If he's been nice to somebody today.
The odd thing is, Alex Wolff is a not-outer. He's one of the, on Steve Pittard's table of umpires. He's right down.
I know he's a bloody not-outer. Just ask Alistair Cook.
He's a not player as well, Anthony, as we remember.
And he had every reason for giving that not out, that Josh Davey LBW decision. And he thought about it, and then it would have nicked leg stump, I think.
Well, he's obviously a listener, and he's desperate to get himself off the list, and he's done nothing to.
I thought the umpires were good actually in this game. Up at the Oval.
We haven't said anything negative. I was just
it's funny you don't say much negative when you beat the county champions by an innings at 80 odd to the best umpires in the world.
Up at the Oval, there was some really duff decision.
There were, Bantz got a bit of a shocker, didn't he? And there was a couple of others. Right, moving on there. So we did one question that's taken us about 20 minutes and nearly caused a fight between Ben and Anthony. So we better move on then. Andy Cleve comments: raining in Taunton this morning. Yes, well that was posted yesterday. Blah 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 blah. This is from Andy Cleve as well. Who does Siddle come in for Gloucester next week? I think we'll cover that in depth when we look ahead to the Gloucester game next week. And couple from John Hayes: given our performance and result and the other results in the division, is the title still on? Absolutely. It is mathematically possible, and we are playing as we should. So, totally happy with that. Unless we
yes, except we're not going to be very well placed come September. We've got to win 2 or 3 more games because we're going to be without. We won't have Renshaw, and we won't have Siddle. We probably won't have Leach, and we probably won't have Overton either.
Yeah, but we might have Devon Conway. I'm looking at Ben. Do you know? Do you know? Oh, you should know all these things, Ben.
I don't know.
Never mind. And John's second point is England reset. Should Division 2 players Stuart Broad, etc., be considered? Listening to Pete Trigo, maybe not. Well, I don't think Stuart Broad's getting into the England side on the back of taking a bucket full of Division 2 wickets this year, John. I think he's getting into the England side on the back of the 500, 600 odd Test wickets he's taken in his career. But unless we've got any...
Well, that's almost you're going down the route of making Division 2 non-first class, aren't you? That's the danger that you get teams, parked in that division. Probably is already.
Yeah,
and we know Stuart Broad. Let's not forget started at Leicester.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some quite interesting cricket played in Division 2 this year. So
that has. Well, you've got Pujara, Rizwan, Labuschagne.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus Trescothick is going to play for Australia, and he's just getting hundreds in Division 2, so you don't know. But that, just as a kind of a rolling on from that point, if we do go to three divisions, what you're saying about devaluing Division 2 runs, it'll be magnified tenfold with Division 3 runs, and you will just see an exodus of talented players from whichever counties are in that bottom six, and I think they'll struggle to survive, to be honest. So I think keeping it at 2 divisions is just about right. If you go to 3, that's it. You're just gonna get rid of 6 counties, which they may want to do. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Any more questions? There was one more.
Can shout out to David Wyatt, who tweeted something, and he was asking them. About the Siddle Brooks leaving out, and he mentioned Hildreth and Davis, which we've talked about. But I just wanted to say well done, David, because I know he's a really passionate Chelsea fan, so it must have been quite hard for him yesterday afternoon, this morning, to type very much through the the anger of what happened at Goodison yesterday.
Oh dear.
Spencer was happy, I believe.
He was.
So we've done David's first point about the Siddle Brooks selection quandary. Hildreth and Davis aren't building on starts. How many more games? Well, not sure about that. And Overton and Gregory are currently bowlers and not all rounders. Well, I just think Craig Overton certainly is in a pretty miserable run of form with a bat. But I think Anthony's come back in. I thought it got a bit quiet. Let's let Anthony back in. Yeah, I think Lewis has had a bit of a in and out the side. He's had injuries, and I think Craig is just out of form. I mean,
Craig seems to be getting out the same sort of way as he struggled in Test cricket with that ball just nipping back. So, I'm sure we're working hard on that.
It's a good job he's in pretty decent nick with the ball then, isn't it?
But it's one of those things. I don't think it's fair to say Craig's out of form, because he's not really... He's had good balls early on. The ball that got him on Friday, if he'd have been in 10, 20 balls, he wouldn't have left a gap like that. He's not, I think it was Mike Brearley once was asked, playing for England, can you continue to captain the side when you're out of form? And he said, I don't know, I'm not out of form. I haven't faced enough balls for England this year to know. And I think it's a bit like that. And, the thing is, when you've got the buffer as well, when you've got Josh and Jack coming in 9 and 10,
we're batting all the way down, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. If you've say got a Tom Banton left, and when we do lose Craig and Lewis quickly, you've still got 2 guys. And Siddle's no mug with the bat. He hasn't shown it yet, but he's no mug with the bat. You could easily see the last 3 wickets batting 30, 40 overs again.
And I think Jack Brooks scoring some runs actually really boosted his confidence then because he hadn't actually scored any runs for a while. So.
Sorry, I'm absolutely desperate for a pee. Talk amongst yourselves. Keep going. I'll be back in a sec.
So I think that innings that he played when he started to look like kind of having a bit of fun, like the old Jack Brooks kind of with his batting, I think it did have a big role to play with the confidence he then took in with the ball, because like I said, it had been a while since he's sort of been, I know in his first summer with Somerset he played some really good made some really good contributions with the bat, and then again in 2020 he he got that 70 odd, didn't he, against I want to say Glamorgan when he put on a lot of runs with Steve Davis. But the runs have rather dried up for Jack when he'd been in and out of the side. So, again, we're talking about these little things during the course of a game that can have a big impact. And I think that last wicket partnership with Jack Leach definitely kept us well ahead of the game.
It's the intangibles, isn't it, Ben? If you tried and analyse what was difference between that performance and the performance at the Oval, it's as Anthony said, we've caught very well all season. Maybe we haven't had the rub of the green occasionally, and we've not put partnerships together, but everything else has been fine. And you sort of feel, like Ian said, you walk away on Saturday feeling good about life. Not to get carried away, but you feel good about life. But it is that confidence, momentum. I know a lot of people hate it, but they're all. And part of me is like, why haven't we got a game this week? But actually, I think
it's an ECB conspiracy, Steve. Good. They knew we were going to win this week, so they thought, we'll stop them getting any momentum, and this is going to be Somerset's blank week.
But I think even the little things like the two, the Ben Green and the Lewis Goldsworthy partnership for the twos today, those are just signs again of, even that wasn't happening a couple of weeks ago. Even the twos weren't scoring. I know Van der Merwe got 100, but there certainly wasn't that pressure for places in the top order. But even now, there's going to be, at least a conveyor belt of people that are asking the question of the head coach. So
it's a bit like England, wasn't it? When Zach Crawley got dropped, he didn't earn his place back. He just had to wait for it to be his turn. And I think now you've got a top order that's posted 450, batted really well together. The players who are in the seconds are now thinking, I'm going to have to earn my place back rather than just wait for somebody to be dropped because they're not in form.
Yeah, quite right.
And it takes a huge weight off Tom Abel, because we've said on here for the last few weeks, he's known that if he gets out, it's not great. He can perhaps play with a little more freedom now, because he thinks, if one of the top two above me is going to have already got runs when I go in, and I know that between Banton, Hildreth, Davies and the lower order, we're going to get some runs as well. That is a completely different mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He is playing with more freedom as well. Last couple of innings especially. I mean, he was looking really, really good in both.
Yeah, he hit the ground running, didn't he, on Thursday? He really did.
One final question then from Mike Unwin. Is spontaneous clapping out of the long jump, triple jump, is that against the spirit of the county championship? Mike, I would do it every ball. I think the strike, I don't know what the stats are for that, but I think the strike rate of wickets per balls clapped is probably about 25%. So if we just did that for a morning, we'd skittle them twice, and then we'd be in the ring of bells by tea.
Yeah, we've got a competitive advantage over a lot of the other counties with the number, so that's in terms of the crowd numbers we get. So let's use it.
Absolutely. Right, yeah, that's listeners' questions. One thing I meant to bring up at the start, but I forgot, is Marcus getting chucked out of his own pavilion. You probably know more about that than I do, Ben. Do you want to quickly tell us what happened on? Was it Thursday or Friday?
Yeah, I think it was Thursday, and Lachlan Stevens again was another one who was thrown out. But the Trez story was probably the more famous one. But you're not wrong that Trez was in and in one of the unused hospitality suites, just sort of watching the game and minding his own business. But he was maybe mistaken for a non Marcus Trescothick person, and asked to. But Trez was he didn't. I'm pretty sure most people in that situation would have gone a little bit like, that my picture is literally on every single wall as you approach this building. But I'm told he was very gracious and sort of as you would expect. But it is quite hilarious because he was in the far box, which is to get to it. You literally have to, now that the pavilion's been officially branded. You sort of, there's almost like a walkway of pictures of Trez and all his career stats and everything. So as you've gone through this walkway, just sort of seeing his face in all these different eras.
What did he say? Who do you think you are?
So yeah, I think it actually made Paul's Crick Info report as well.
It did.
What's happened to the steward then? Has he been reprimanded or?
It was
has he been praised?
I believe.
Because if Marcus doesn't have the proper accreditation, he shouldn't be in a members-only area.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, the ECB have been slow with accreditation this year, so it might be that he just didn't have. No, I think it was all pretty laughed off in jest.
Oh, great stuff. Well, to be fair, I've never been chucked out of the Marcus Trescothick Pavilion yet, so I haven't been chucked out of the Roloff van der Merwe Pavilion yet, so mind you, having said that, this is the Roloff van der Merwe Pavilion, and if Roloff just rocks up, he doesn't get just to come in here automatically, you know, he's got to be invited in, and he would be invited in with open arms.
He's got to have his pass. He's got to have your pass. Hanging around your neck.
Pass. Exactly. That's my pass. Just look at my face. Right. We've done over an hour. It's been great, gents. Do we have any other business before we call it a night?
I would just like to mention congratulations to the Somerset women who won both their games today at Taunton Vale.
Yeah.
Good performance over. They were playing Wales, so all the bits and pieces are on the Somerset website. Dan Kingdom was there, I know. So he's
Kingdom's column will be the new Kingdom's column will be with us on next day.
Yeah, Dan isn't with us tonight. He's on a train back to Birmingham at the moment, so he couldn't make it tonight. But yeah, interesting enough, the title of last week's podcast was well, not the title, but the brief description I popped in was "Why don't Somerset women?" We wondered why Somerset women don't wear the same kit as the men, and Sophie Luff replied, asking, "Good question," because I think most of the other counties do. So, and I'm sure Trade Nation wouldn't be averse to chucking a few extra, few guys.
Yeah, if Sophie wants to get in touch, I'd be delighted to do a piece on her and the women on the blog, because Dan and I are really trying to expand it this year, and we're hoping Abby Slade joins in a bit as well. So, anything anyone can do who's listening, who's connected with Somerset women, please let us know, because that's something we've wanted to do for a couple of years, but a certain COVID has messed it up for us. So
I think
please.
I think Dan's going to send an email about it yet, so it'll be sorted in a couple of days. But
it is on the radar. It is on the radar. It's one of those things that's been it's been a COVID.
I'll tell you what,
sort of
just get 11 shirts out of the shop, get their names printed on the back, and then give them out. There you go. See, the problem solved. Great stuff. Right, well, I've learned what prehensile means today, so I can pop that in my record of achievement. But unless we've got anything else, Tom Banton liked my video of the boys singing Blackbird in the dressing room, which was somewhat somewhat rudely interrupted by Mark Tyler reading out the bowling figures, but. Yeah, it was glad to hear it. I'm glad they remember the words. It seems to have been a while since they've been able to sing it, but glad we are that they were able to burst into Blackbird, singing it loud and singing it proud. If you want to give us a follow on Twitter, we're at Somerset Podcast. I think we're at Somerset Podcast on every social media. Drop us an email at thesomersetpodcast@gmail.com. But unless we've got anything else pressing, everyone's shaking their head at me. Good stuff. Right, we will reconvene in a week's time, where we'll look forward to the short trip up the M5 to take on the Gloucesters on hopefully what will be a slightly more sporting pitch than, was it 603 all outplayed 443 for 2. Poor old James Bracey, third ball duck in amongst all that. Never mind. Okay, right. Thanks, guys, for Steve, Ben, and Anthony. I wish you all a good night, and I hope you're still celebrating Somerset's fantastic victory over the county champions Warwickshire by an innings and 80-something runs. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Cheers. Bye.
So the Somerset bowling figures: Craig Overton 15 overs, 3 maidens, 2 for 41. Josh Davey 10 overs, 3 maidens, 1 for 10. Lewis Gregory 10 overs, 1 maiden, 1 for 30. Jack Leach 22.1 overs, 9 maidens, 2 for 35. And finally, once again, Jack Brooks 16 overs, 5 maidens, 4 wickets for 44.